Welcome everyone to the afternoon seminar sessions. I hope you had an enjoyable morning listening to the keynote speakers. This seminar will be about the Idle Valley Nature Recovery Network. We will be focusing on the part of the Idle Valley between Bawtry and West Stockwith. Okay, Cassie, thank you. The Idle catchment is significantly larger than this. The River Idle begins south of Gamston, not far from Retford, and is formed by the confluence of the Mourne, Meaden and Poulter, each issuing to the east of Mansfield and draining the Sherwood area of Nottinghamshire. Thank you, Cassie. The key habitats in the area comprise of 4 distinct units of the Idle Washlands: Misson Limebank, with its broadleaf woodland and lowland, Carr Nature Reserve, and Haxey Grange Fen. And if you look at the slide that's current, sorry, can you just go back? Thank you. And if you look at the slide currently showing, if we start at the left-hand side at Bawtry, you will see a linear area dotted with green running to the northeast. That is Unit 1 of the Idle Washlands. The area that is just paled in light blue is actually Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust's Hag Lane Nature Reserve, but that is part of that unit. If we go east along the Idle to a bell-shaped area, that is Unit 2 of the Idle Washlands. And if we continue, that's sometimes referred to as Misson West. If we continue along the Idle, there is a small area which is quite hard to pick out actually, a small sort of shallow trough-like shape. That's Unit 3. And that's sometimes referred to as Misson East. As we continue northeast along the river, you'll see a Unit 4 of the Idle Washlands, which is the second largest area. And then sort of protruding from that sort of narrow shape, that is Misson Limebank. And that's also a triple SI. To the north of there is Notts Wildlife Trust's Misson Carr Nature Reserve. And then to the east of that, you can see Haxey Grange Fen, which I think is just over the border actually just over the border, I think, with Yorkshire. So immediately you get a sense that although you've got these high quality habitats, they are somewhat fragmented. Alongside these areas, we have floodplain grazing marsh and arable land, a significant proportion of which is farmed organically. And these provide habitat diversity. It's actually the river itself that provides connectivity between most of these habitats. Thank you, Cassie. So this photo was taken looking north from Bawtry Bridge, just as you head out on the Gainsborough Road. The River Idle is immediately in front of us, running north. And then the area to the left, the inundated area, is actually part of Unit 1. And these washlands do inundate quite frequently, particularly in recent years, and often hold water for quite long periods. Thank you, Cassie. This is a shot of the fen area at Misson Limebank. This area was subject to some birch and oak scrub clearance some years ago now through nature improvement area funding, because of a concern that the fen was gradually drying out. So the removal of the scrub was hopefully to retain a greater wetness within the site. Part of the problem here is that the surrounding land is lower, so water does naturally drain off the site. Thank you, Cassie.
Can I just jump in on that slide?
Oh, yes, sorry.
It's all right. I just want to drop in here to talk a little bit about the triple SIs. They're probably one of the most sensitive habitats in the catchment, and there's been a significant amount of work done over the last few years to try and understand exactly what the issues are and what we can collectively do about it. It sounds like a simple solution, but actually to understand the idle catchment is the key to the success. It's so complex and with such a rich history and a wide range of uses with far-reaching priorities. It's a real balancing act to get it right, and inevitably there will be compromises. In terms of landmarks and assets, alongside the triple SI, we have Newington Quarry and the associated restoration area, Mizzen Reservoir, West Upquith Pumping Station, Bawtry and Mizzen town centres, and the major A631 road crossing the river south of Bawtry, which Mark also alluded to. There are also properties and businesses to protect from flooding. There are farmers to provide with water for irrigation, and the water-dependent triple SIs to protect with the right balance of water at the right time. Then, of course, we must also consider the ongoing priorities to provide future generations with a healthy environment. We've got commitments such as the government commitment to zero carbon emissions, climate change mitigation and adaptations, the 25-year environment plan, feeding the nation, sustainable use of water, and also the commitment to ending reliance on fossil fuels. So this is just a snapshot really of the complexities that we have to consider and also balance on a daily basis, particularly in this catchment. Thanks, Mark, for jumping in. We'll go to the next slide, please.
So now I'm going to talk about what wildlife interest there is there currently, and I'll be focusing on the birds because these habitats provide opportunities for a range of birds of high conservation concern. So on the left hand side you'll see a photo of a singing corn bunting. As I've said, this is a species that is declining nationally, so the small population which is centred around Gringley Carr and the wider Carlands is very important, and these birds require large fields and very open landscapes. And the farmland here also provides a seed source during the winter by providing seed-rich margins that Polybell Farms are paid to put in through an agri-environment scheme, through their countryside stewardship scheme. Moving right, top right, willow tit, another nationally declining species, and in actual fact, South Yorkshire and into Cheshire has become the stronghold for this species. So the birds again in this area, the population is important, but it's very small, it's very vulnerable. They actually like, as the name suggests, the more wetter areas around Unit 4 of the Idle Washlands, Idle Stop, and the area along Misson Linebank. Turtle dove, species that's been in the news a great deal, shot very widely on migration, huge declines in the UK over the last 25 years. This species is clinging on. There are several pairs in the area, which is really encouraging. Again, they benefit from the farmland, but also for food, but they also nest in some of the mature scrub around the edges of the fields and around the triple SIs. So 3 very important species nationally. Thank you, Cassie. The Washlands themselves are triple SIs. They're designated for their breeding waders, such as lapwing and redshank, that you can see in the slide, and as feeding and roosting sites for wintering wildfowl and swans, including hooper swans from Iceland and small numbers of Buick swan that arrive here from Russia, and also widgeon and teal. Several partner organisations, including ourselves, Environment Agency and Severn Trent Water, and local landowners like Polybell Farm, are working together to try and enhance the idle washlands to benefit populations of these species, and to also provide habitat for otters and water vole. Thank you. For a landscape scale approach in conservation, we need to create new areas. We need to increase the size of existing patches and create buffers around them. We need high quality habitats that are well managed to increase wildlife. And we also need better connected habitats, creating stepping stones and linkages through the wider landscape. The goal is to create resilient landscapes to allow wildlife to respond to climate change. And the vision is that these landscapes will encompass public land, NGO sector land, and privately owned land, and one which also contributes to other enhanced ecosystems services such as natural flood management. Thank you, Cassie. And I think this slide sort of neatly sums that up. Essentially, we need to seek out opportunities for reconnecting our fragmented landscape. Thank you. A pivotal point in achieving this landscape conservation strategy was the creation of a Biodiversity Opportunity Map by the Nottinghamshire Biodiversity Action Group. A habitat network model was used to create maps that indicate how well connected the existing landscape resource is. The next step was, through stakeholder engagement, these maps were then used to identify opportunities to enhance connectivity in a given landscape. The main map that you can see indicates wetland connectivity across an area from Bawtry to Unit 4 of the Idle Washlands, which is the large grey area in the northeastern corner of the slide. The grey areas bordered by green indicate more than 250 hectares of the wetland network. The inset map indicates potential wetland habitat creation opportunities. The grey areas indicate existing areas of value, but where additional habitat would buffer those areas from edge effects. And if you look carefully in the sort of the top part of the inset map, you will see a pale, very pale blue sort of square. And again, that is our Misson, not Wildlife Trust, Misson Carr Nature Reserve, which again, we struggle to keep wet, and that is because a lot of the surrounding landscape is in arable use and is actually lower than the reserve itself, and the surrounding land is actually drained. So to improve the quality of that site, ideally, we would need to purchase land to the north of it and raise water levels. But of course, that might not be popular with farming businesses in the area. The blue areas indicate where we could potentially work with landowners to make areas better for wildlife. Such opportunities, of course, though, are subject to landowner agreement and funding availability. And we've been quite fortunate recently as a trust. We've managed to obtain funding from the Environment Agency and Severn Trent Water to deliver 2 wader scrapes on Polybell farmland, on actually former arable land, which was taken out of production. So those scrapes will benefit breeding lapwing and breeding curlew in the area. And we also intend to deliver some work on Unit 4 of the idle Washlands, which will help to bring it back into favourable condition. And so for Polybell farms, they will then be able to manage the area sustainably in the future. I think the next slide's over to you, Katie.
Thank you. So this is a map showing the areas of the catchment which is under stewardship agreement. The blue polygons you can see show the relevant field parcels, and also in green, probably just about, you can see the outline of the SSSIs, most of which again are under agreement too. The stewardship agreements shown here are slightly out of date. It's more to give you a picture of the extent of the land we're talking about. I also can't share further details because it contains sensitive information. But I just wanted to demonstrate the extent of land that's proactively managed for the benefit of the environment. This area is also covered by the River Idle Catchment Partnership, which is a group of partners made up of landowners, organisations, independent or locally interested parties, local authorities, etc. It's actually funded by the Environment Agency and hosted by Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust. So a really good, strong partnership group there. The group's overall ambition is to improve the environment, obviously. And as such, our vision, our agreed vision, is to conserve and enhance the rivers Idle, Ryton, Poulter, Meaden, Morn, their tributaries and surrounding land to create a healthy and wildlife-rich water environment for the benefit of both people and biodiversity. To deliver this vision, we're committed to working together to design and develop and deliver projects. And this stretch of river that we're focusing on today is the recipient of quite substantial amounts of funding and attention too. But we can't talk about this catchment without touching on some of the issues faced, and they are quite conflicting. We have too much water at some times and not enough water at others, which does seem to be at the root of most of the problems we face here, and the SSSIs seem to bear the brunt of the issue as well. The washlands don't act as washlands and they're retaining water for far too long, which has lasting consequences for the soil conditions, for biodiversity, and not forgetting landowner livelihoods as well. The River Idle Management Group is the largest active group we have in the area, but we also have the Humberhead Levels Roving Volunteer Group, who have been instrumental in helping some of our project delivery with the boots on the ground work. So we've got to name check them, they're really important. We also have the Priority Catchment Group, which was set up and funded as a 2-year project by the Environment Agency. We are coming to the end of that programme now, but we have some really useful outputs, which we're now looking to progress with EA colleagues, Environment Agency colleagues, and external partners too. The outputs of this project has contributed to the overall knowledge base and understanding of the interactions within the wider catchment. I should mention that it also includes the Taun catchment to the north as well. The Priority Catchment Group is to cover the Taun and the Idle catchments. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So these are aerial images of the Unit 4 of the SSSI, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the project that Mark has just alluded to with Polybell Farms. So one way in which to enhance the SSSIs is to improve land management, to improve functioning of the Washlands, and consequently to improve the functioning of the river overall. So this, as I said, is an aerial image of Unit 4 of the SSSI. It's an example of an area currently under a stewardship agreement. And in partnership with the landowner, Polybell Farms and Natural England, we have brought the unit back into a successful management regime. A few years ago, this was a site dominated by Phragmites. It was knee-deep in water, and there was no chance of the landowner grazing it or even cutting it. So we fixed up the sluice gate, which was preventing water from leaving the site. Then we looked at operating the up and downstream sluices simultaneously to try and control or better control the levels of water on the site. The site then did drain we drained it over the summer months, and it dried out to the point where the landowner could actually get on and cut the reed back. We also worked with Notts Wildlife Trust to enhance the ditch network within the site, which you can sort of pick out in some of those aerial images. We looked to remove some of the predator cover around the peripheral edges of the site. We improved the access on and off the site and installed substantial fencing to support grazing. These two images at the top of the slide are post-cut from 2019. In 2020, we also drained the site in the summer again, and we managed an even more extensive cut. So on the picture on the top right, you can sort of see to the eastern side of the site that there was an area that wasn't managed to be cut. So in 2020, we managed to do the whole site, which was an improvement there. The site can now be brought back into active management with grazing livestock and periodic and managed inundations of floodwater to try and support the bird populations that it once sustained. This change in the land practice has improved the quality of the SSSI for feeding and roosting bird populations, and it's also improved the breeding potential for snipe and redshank. Now, with climate change impacts upon us, we do need to monitor the situation constantly going forwards, and we need to be dynamic and make changes where necessary through consistent communication with the landowners. That's really important. We want to keep improving the site and keep working with the landowners to do the best that we can. We're also undertaking work on and around Unit 1 to install some scrapes to retain runoff, some extra fencing to prevent poaching and public access, and also further tree work to prevent predation. Alongside all of this active work on the ground, we're also working with a consultant to identify reasons why the Washlands aren't functioning in the way that they should, and what we need to do to try and rectify the situation. This hopefully will give us the targets for the next few years' work and give us a focus for the types of projects to focus on. This is totally evidence-led, and we're looking at all the potential variables to then provide the recommendations for betterment of the SSSI. I've touched on a few slides ago about the sort of the conflicting priorities and the complexities within the catchment, and it's about balancing all of these to work out what is the right way forwards for the catchment. Next slide, please. So what now? What does the future hold? We've discussed some of the things that we're doing on the ground, but there are also more strategic activities going on behind the scenes too. I'll just run through a couple of those. We have the new environmental land management scheme, which is to replace countryside stewardship. That's currently working on a number of trials nationwide to better understand what and how the scheme needs to deliver for landowners and for the environment. We also have the Minerals Restoration Master Plan for Newington and Mizzen, which has taken years of hard work from numerous organisations and individuals to deliver, but it is coming to fruition, as you can see by the images here. So top left, you've got the the restoration master plan there. And then the photograph right in the middle of the page shows the reality of that with an aerial image of the site. Again, climate change is going to provide further challenges to this site over the next few years and into the future. So we need to be mindful of that and dynamic, again, looking to further improve things or mitigate risks. We also have the Environment Agency's IDOR strategy, which is looking at the whole catchment with the total array of challenges we have, from water level management to flood risk, water quality, biodiversity, water resources, and also economics. And then, well, not finally, because this list isn't exhaustive, but I just wanted to mention the Natural Environment Investment Readiness Fund, which is a new Environment Agency fund which looks to maximise private investment in natural capital assets to specifically attract new sources of funding for large-scale projects. There's a strong learning aspect to this funding stream, which hopefully will allow us to make even further progress. Additionally, we would like to work on improving the catchment partnership by attracting more partners, and we remain committed to delivering environmental improvements catchment-wide, but it's important that we do this together. The Environment Agency can't do this on their own. We need to do it in partnership with other people. And we're doing really well at that so far. There are certainly opportunities within the wider catchment, for example, funding around town centre improvements, better business partnerships, and NFM opportunities, that's natural flood management opportunities. They could be hugely beneficial here as well, particularly when we're looking at too much water in the lower catchment, as this is. We should be looking across the entire catchment to look at where we can slow the flows, hold it up, keep the water in the catchment rather than pumping it out to the sea. We're open to innovative ideas, and we're currently working on a more strategic approach. So I do believe that in time we will create this landscape scale improvement that we're after. We're looking for better connected, multifaceted and more value for money. Next slide, please. Thank you ever so much. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening, everybody.